Slavery has been part of human history for thousands of years and existed in many ancient civilizations, including ancient Egypt. But what was it really like to be a slave in this ancient society? Were slaves treated harshly? Or was there some level of kindness and compassion shown towards them? Let's dive into the video and explore the life of slaves in ancient Egypt. The concept of slavery in ancient Egypt was complex. Slaves were the lowest rank in Egyptian society, positioned even beneath farmers and servants. However, this did not confine them to menial labor alone. Indeed, slaves often served directly under the Pharaoh and other higher ranks, offering a unique insight into the luxuries of the ruling class. Their roles were diverse, extending beyond the common perception of hard labor. In fact, many slaves were known as musicians and dancers, dedicated to entertaining their masters. Historically, it was widely accepted that the magnificent pyramids of Egypt were constructed by oppressed slaves laboring under harsh conditions. This belief painted a picture of large-scale exploitation, aligning with our understanding of slave labor in ancient times. However, recent scholarly research has shed new light on this subject, challenging these long-standing assumptions. It turns out that the majority of workers involved in the construction of these architectural marvels were not oppressed slaves, but rather paid laborers. These findings invite us to revisit and revise our understanding of the workforce behind these iconic structures. According to Dr. Andrei Shvek, a renowned Egyptologist from the Archaeological Museum in Poznan, the Grand Pyramids and other majestic royal structures of ancient Egypt were not constructed by unnamed, oppressed slaves. Instead, they were the masterpieces of skilled and highly qualified workers, individuals who devoted their entire lives to this monumental endeavor. This revelation does not completely deny the existence of forced labor in the society. However, it casts significant doubt on the stereotype of slaves being subjected to relentless, back-breaking work. Now, the question is, where did these slaves come from? It seems that the slave population consisted of prisoners of war, usually foreigners. According to Dr. Shvek, the number of slave workers swelled during the imperial period, 1550 to 1069 BC. This was a time of many successful campaigns. The individuals enslaved during this time were of Asian, Nubian, and Syro-Palestinian descent. Imagine being taken from your home and forced into a life of servitude in a foreign land. That was likely the reality for these slaves. But the picture of ancient Egyptian society and its relationship with slavery doesn't end there. Despite these conquests and the influx of foreign slaves, the economy in Egypt was never based on slavery, as was the case with many other ancient civilizations, such as Rome. Records indicate that the slave class in Egypt wasn't necessarily separate from the free class. If a slave could buy their freedom, they would be assimilated into society. This tells us that the social fabric of ancient Egypt was more intricate than a simple division between the free and the enslaved. It showed that if the slaves were removed from society, Egyptian life would not be heavily dependent on their contributions and would proceed without them. In other words, the Egyptian economy and social structure were not built solely around the exploitation of slaves. Rather, it was designed in a way that it could adjust and function effectively even in their absence. Slaves in Egypt existed with a unique framework that allowed them to blend seamlessly into society. They were often indentured due to personal debt, or criminal histories, or were war captives. However, their status did not detract from their basic rights as citizens. They could own property, engage in trade, and even build familial ties through marriage. Even their work conditions, whether assisting stonemasons in sourcing materials for pyramid construction or serving in the homes of craftsmen at Deir el-Medina, reflected a dignified treatment, unlike other civilizations where slaves were harshly exploited. In Egypt, they were part of a balanced societal structure where everyone had duties to perform. Asian and Nubian individuals, despite enduring a somewhat negative reputation in ancient Egyptian society, found themselves integrated into the culture once enslaved. Scholars can only hypothesize the reasons behind their initial societal standing. However, it's noteworthy that the Egyptian approach to slavery was far from punitive. Unlike other civilizations where slaves were treated like prisoners, Egypt offered a more humane environment. The enslaved individuals adapted well to the Egyptian ways, mastering the local language, and often forming nuptial bonds with Egyptian women. This flexibility and adaptability opened up exceptional opportunities for them within society. Freedom in ancient Egyptian society was attainable for slaves through a couple of different avenues. For example, the children of adult slaves could be adopted by their owners, thus granting them emancipation. Another route towards liberation was the option of being purified by the king, a process known as swabbing. This unique tradition could put the enslaved on a path toward earning wages and possessing rights. It enabled them to marry, start families, and even retain their original names, illustrating a more humane approach to slavery compared to other ancient societies. Career opportunities were also available to slaves in ancient Egypt, sometimes leading to extraordinary achievements. An example would be May Perhiri, a slave of Nubian descent living in the 15th century BC. Remarkably, Perhiri was interred in the prestigious Valley of Kings, a privilege primarily reserved for Egyptian royalty. His epithet, Lion on the Battlefield, is suggestive of a significant military career, or perhaps even a heroic act, like saving a pharaoh's life. Such instances demonstrate that despite their status, slaves could rise above societal norms and attain unexpected heights in ancient Egyptian society. While the institution of slavery is more perceived negatively in the historical context of ancient Egypt, it's crucial to understand that the reality was far from universally oppressive, played a significant role in determining their treatment. In fact, most slaves were afforded quite favorable conditions, including the chance to acquire trade and work towards their own emancipation. These enslaved individuals were instrumental in realizing architectural wonders, such as the Grand Pyramids and temples, and they provided vital labor for agricultural practices. Therefore, although slaves were integral to the functioning of ancient Egyptian society, they were not its bedrock. So, this was everything about the complex relationship between slavery and ancient Egyptian society. It is clear that slaves formed an essential part of the economy, culture, and societal structure in ancient Egypt. However, this was not a one-sided story of exploitation and oppression. Instead, it highlights a unique balance between social classes, where even slaves had opportunities to achieve success and freedom within the system. If you enjoyed the video, give it a big thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Also, let us know in the comments if you want to see more videos on similar topics. Goodbye until next time.